We came from being a very solid and large digital wallet into a full-fledged bank, PIX, open finance, crypto, just scratching the surface.
First person from Latin America to join us, Eduardo Chedid. He is the CEO of PicPay.
We were the first ones to launch PIX through WhatsApp using ChatGPT. 60 million of our clients already have access to that.
60 million customers already. The growth is just incredible.
The time between up and down cycles in Brazil is much shorter. From one day to the other, things will devaluate like 2-3%. It's a very dynamic and technological market.
I think the last 6 months we've all gone crazy on tokenized money, right? It's like every problem in the life is going to be solved by stable coins.
We started with crypto about 2.5 years ago. And then we shut it down because the regulatory aspect of it was very, very not mature. So now we're coming back to it. Is that our number one priority right now? No, it's not. Do we have teams working on that? Yes.
So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to, I must say, a very, very special episode of Couchonomics with Arjun. This is the first time in 150 episodes we have someone from Latin America who's sort of dialing in for a chat. His name is Eduardo Chedid. He's the CEO of PicPay, which is widely known as the most successful super app that is in Brazil, and I'm sure he'll correct me. But what I'm superbly excited with the background of Sao Paulo behind him, is Eduardo, I guess, on the virtual couch. Eduardo, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Arjun, and well, thanks for having us. And it's an honor then, now that I know that it's been a while since you don't talk to anyone from Latin America.
It has been hard. I have a few friends. I've tried to get them on the show, but maybe you will break the ice, and we'll have a lot more from Latin America, because to be honest with you, it's a huge part of the world. It's a massively exciting part of the world, and I think there are people in the Middle East, in Asia, who tend to tune into my podcast more than I guess people in Latin America, who can learn from I guess the stuff that you're doing. So before we start, I just wanted to kind of get some numbers right and correct me if I've got wrong, right? So, this just talks about scale. So PicPay in numbers, as I say, and what's in front of me, registered users about 60 plus million, right? Share of the PIX transaction, and PIX is the real-time faster payment rails from the government or from the regulator. You are sort of 11% and you're growing. Your net revenue has crossed $1 billion in 2024, and you'll correct me what it looks like in 2025. Your net profit, I think, went 7x in 24 compared to 2023. So obviously you're doing something really well, and you have over 4,500 employees. Yes. So in all intents and purposes, it's a big business.
Yeah, it's becoming bigger and bigger every year. We cannot complain.
You cannot complain. So, Eduardo, where I'd love to start with is I'd love if you take a step back and if you could just paint a picture of what does the Brazilian sort of fintech financial services, state of the nation look like, right? Just so that people can actually get better acquainted, because yes, we've all heard about Nubank and we've all heard about Bank Inter, right? But just at a wider level, talk us a little bit about what does the Brazilian fintech financial services sector look like?
Okay. I'm actually going to go through maybe 30 years, okay? But it's going to be short. So if you look at Brazil in the, let's say, in the 90s, it was a huge banking consolidation to a point where we had maybe like 5 to 6 banks that began to represent about 95% of all the financial industry. And that was true for, I'd say, 2 decades, at least. So previously to that, we had many banks, and then suddenly we had like 5 very large ones who basically acquired all of the other ones. And then I'd say that since maybe 2008, around that, let's say that the trend went the opposite way. And one of the big, I'd say, sponsors of that was the central bank. So the central bank has an agenda, and they've had that for, I'd say, 2 decades now, which basically it means that their goals was to, let's say, lower the concentration of the financial industry, because that diminishes risk. And also, they went very, very far in terms of, for example, in the payment space, where we used to have only 2 acquiring companies, one for Visa, one for MasterCard. So they actually said, well, there are no more exclusivity agreements, which also opened up the acquiring business, and then later on the issuing business. And so the central bank was a major force for that. And they've actually went really, really far in terms of also, let's say, fostering all the fintechs and making it, the regulation was pro neobanks, fintechs, and so on. So we went from a consolidation, let's say, stage to a deconcentration stage, which has been happening in the last, I'd say, 2 decades, more proeminently in the last 10 years, to a point where, let's see some numbers here. If you look at 10 years ago, on average, a Brazilian would have 1.2 banking relationships, which basically means that they had one account with one of the 5 or 6 incumbent banks. You fast forward 10 years, and now on average, a Brazilian has 5 banking relationships. So that shows you how much the market has shifted. At the same time, although let's say that the concentration on relationships is gone, totally disrupted, it's still 70% of the profit pool is still in the hands of the same incumbent banks, which means that, the first phase of the disruption has already occurred, but there's still a lot of, let's say, things that should happen. But anyway, the first stage is always getting to, to build the relationship with clients, and then you try to bring more of their businesses to our side. So I think that it changed dramatically, but it will. It's far from done. It's everything is about to happen still.
So let me put a pointed question, right? As we sit today, right, which is I guess the finish of the first half of 2025, right? Beyond the fact that now the Brazilians have 5 accounts per head, and but there's still 70% of the profit pool that you can target all you challengers, right? What is the one thing which really gets you excited today, looking forward the next 5 years?
Well, macro or from PicPay point of view?
You can either way.
Okay, if I look at the macro picture, I think that, as I told you, there is still lots of competition to be done, and the central bank is still fostering much of changes. They've introduced PIX, they've introduced their cryptocurrency, which is called DREX, open finance in Brazil. Certainly I'd say that the UK was the one to break the ice and was in the forefront. But if you compare the open finance, open banking that's happening in Brazil now to the UK, you'll see that, in a few years we've surpassed, in terms of data shared and data, let's say, consents from customers. So I think that most of those things, PIX, open finance, crypto, they're still just scratching the surface. And so I think that, it's exciting as a whole, very dynamic and well regulated.
Let me ask you the opposite question. Let me ask you, what frustrates you?
Well, it's not frustrating. Brazil is always a very volatile place, right? So it's not frustrating because if it was more stable, it would be easier. But it's also true that we've been living with that for ages. So it's just another, you have the time between up and down cycles in Brazil is much shorter. But at the same time, we're used to getting around those. And I think that also explains, I told you that from the 90s, there was a huge banking consolidation. But you also had a few, let's say, international banks coming to Brazil and basically saying, well, now we're going to show you how to do banking. And you look 20 years later, and most of them actually flew away because the environment is extremely dynamic in terms of technology, because in the past we had a really high inflation. So, we went very, very far in terms of doing everything electronically because, from one day to the other, things will devaluate like 2-3%. So we couldn't do lots of batch transactions. So it's a very dynamic, highly skilled and technological market. And I think that we are in the middle of that. And if I look at from the PicPay perspective, we began as a digital wallet, basically offering P2P payments and P2 merchant payments through QR codes in 2012. And that was, today we call that instant payments, but that's what we offered before. And by 2020, when the central bank introduced PIX, the instant payment rails here in Brazil, lots of people actually thought that, it's kind of a death penalty for PicPay. It was the opposite, because, we could translate our previous expertise into this new environment. And fortunately, we've decided to embrace PIX instead of compete with PIX. And that gave us a disproportional participation in that. And since it became the number one payment method, it boosted our growth. And then in the past 4 years, we came from being a very solid and large digital wallet into a full-fledged bank with all the products. If I look from the beginning of 2021 until now, we've introduced at least one product per month. So why it gets me excited? Because the macro looks good, and then we have lots of products that we've been introducing, but none of them are mature. So there is lots of market share to go for with the current clients as well as the new clients that we're going to acquire the next few years. So everything looks good.
Okay, so let me ask a question. So I think you partly sort of phrased the question for me very well. So thanks for doing that. And I had this sort of question written, which was started as a wallet. Apologies, I'm going to use the word became more of a super app or a financial super app, which is what you've said, right? Increasingly looking to become sort of the financial operating system for your clients, right? Two-part question. One is the ambition now very clearly to become a full-service bank, right? Or is it something different? And if I could put the second question at the same time so that, you can have a go at it, is that, you are playing in the playground of the giants, right? So you have the 5 or 6 incumbents, 70% of the pool. You have people like Nubank and Banco Inter who have sort of, made great forays and, they're growing. And obviously among all of this, there's PicPay too. So question is, one is, where are you going? What's the long-term vision, if you're happy to share? Second part is, do you need to differentiate and compete with some of these big players every day, or is the opportunity pool so big that at least in the near term, all of you can ride the wave and you don't have to really worry about competing with each other so much? Mm-hmm. So just take those two questions.
Mm-hmm. Well, about our vision, it's a complete financial ecosystem. And we tend to say financial because that's what we focus more on. But it's also true that the way we view the business is we divide that into three. So I have the consumer banking. I also have the SMB banking. And in the middle of that, we have a business unit, which we call ecosystem and audiences, which basically has two mandates. One mandate is to actually monetize those two large audiences by selling non-financial products. Few examples. We have a advertising platform, for example. Since we have a large audience, then if you're Samsung and want to launch a new cell phone, you can do your ads in our app, and obviously we get paid for that. If you want to buy gaming credits, or if you want to top up your cell phone. So many, let's say, non-financial products being sold there. And also, the second mandate of that business unit is to actually drive engagement and connect those two worlds, the SMBs with the consumers. For example, we have what we call PicPay Shop, which is a marketplace that connects more than 300 retailers with our consumers. So you want to buy a TV through our marketplace, we'll get, for example, a 10% cash back from that retailer. We don't make money with that. We basically pass that through to the consumer so that he knows and understands that through PicPay he gets better conditions. Obviously, if he pays with one of my credit cards or with my wallet, and then I'm happier still. But so the way we see the business, it's a financially focused ecosystem, but goes beyond the financial part of it.
So let me clarify what you just said. So in sort of the glue in the middle, as you called it, right? The financial the ecosystem. So if I am not even a customer of PicPay, I can actually go onto your marketplace and use a third-party financial instrument to buy?
Yeah, we do require that you open an account with us. Okay. But you can, yes, use a card from a different bank through my wallet. And since the beginning, I think this is one of our key differentiators here at PicPay, is that we tend to look to this world and with a open platform view. Now that's true, for example, since the beginning, our digital wallet, we take cards from any issuer in Brazil. So you don't have to have my own credit, the PicPay card. You can add your Itaú card, and that's fine with us. The same goes, we're the only ones actually offering what we call the account aggregator, because using the open finance infrastructure, we allow, and remember that a Brazilian has 5 different accounts, we allow our customers to actually let's say, connect their other accounts into my app. And then using, if you look at the let's say, the home screen of the app, you see that you have my PicPay account. But also, if you just scroll left, you'll see all of my other 4 accounts. And you see my statements, all my transactions, my cards. I can actually move money from my, Banco do Brasil account into my PicPay account using the PicPay app. So we are the number one payment initiator right now in terms of those financial transactions. So we try to look at always as this is a kind of an open platform approach. For example, when I offer insurances. We have one that is called wallet protection, which basically covers you from any fraud and if you're doing PIX transactions. When we sell that insurance, we also tell you that if you connect your other accounts, I will protect those other accounts through the same insurance. So I'm not only selling insurance for the transactions you do with your PicPay account, but also with your other accounts, as long as they're connected into our app. So we try to take that concept to the limit, even though a few people will tend to say, well, why are you protecting transactions from another bank? Well, because, I mean, if it's good for the customer, it's good for us also.
No, I get it, and I guess I used a term which obviously is not yours, but it's you're trying to create like a financial operating system, right? Which is you can come onto your operating system, you have your own native apps, but that doesn't stop you to download other apps and sort of fine. And then you create a level playing field. And I know it sounds a bit corny when I say that, but you then compete on being the best so that people switch for all the right reasons. And I think this is something that I think most markets can learn, because there is a number of markets where I believe that people have 4 to 5 different bank accounts, but everyone wants to build these closed loop relationships. And to be honest with you, it just pisses off the customer, if I may use that term, because nobody wants to toggle across 5 or 6 apps, right? So you use the word financial ecosystem, right? So let me ask you this obvious question. In the last sort of 6 to 12 months, what is the boldest, right, move that you guys have made in terms of where you are actually doubling down? Is it something to do with insurance? Is it something to do with wealth? Is it something to do with completely a different part of the ecosystem? What's been the big, bold sort of move in the last 12 months? Or last 6 months?
I'm going to cover a few because it's right. So first of all, if you look at our current, let's say, revenue profile, it changed dramatically in the last 2 years. Remember that we began as a digital wallet, then became a bank, but we've actually started to issue credit products and credit cards. We used to distribute them, but from different partners, right? So loans, credit cards, you name it. But a couple of years ago, we've decided that for core products, we would actually distribute our own. That changed dramatically, and it's still in the early days. So if I can tell you a number, my clients, for example, they represent around, my current clients, they represent around 40% of the total credit card TPV in the market. Not with my cards, but with all the cards that they have. I actually have only a 5% penetration on that 40% penetration of cards TPV. It doubled since last year, but I mean, there is still lots to grow within my client base and even conquer others. So that changed dramatically the profile of the revenue streams in the company. So that I'd say that was the number one change that happened, and that will still take effect throughout the years as we've just started. But if you think of other things that we do believe a lot, our SMB platform. So from the beginning, we always had buyers and sellers on our platform. But even because of we needed to prioritize, we prioritized first the consumer base, and now we're catching up on the SMB platform. So this is also going to become a very relevant business for the company. I try to avoid talking about AI because it seems that, it's just, but in our case, we have like lots of proof points on that. So if you look at, for example, Microsoft, they've released many times that we were, not sure if we're still, but we were last year, for example, the largest the largest player in the financial industry to basically use ChatGPT for all the first level customer service. So we now 60 million of our clients already have access to that. And I can tell you many other examples. We're doing
Let me dwell into that AI thing a little bit, right? So, Eduardo, the question is, it's commendable. You were one of the first to do that, and you guys have created an access 60 million. I think the interesting bit is what led you to that decision, right? So how did you guys decide that, hey, there's ChatGPT? Because let's be honest, it's about 12 months old, right? In terms of so it's not 5 years and 20 people have implemented. So, what was the thinking? What was the thinking among the management team? Which said, something, here's something we really want to back and we want to expose it to our customers?
Well, we are a fast-growing company, right? So if you look at customer service, I mean, it grows as much as you grow. And so we had two main objectives there. There's efficiency, but more than that, efficiency also from a client perspective. Because also, as we were introducing a product a month, I mean, it becomes very, very hard for a human to actually handle all of those. I mean, if you enter into a place where all of those products are already there, it's something. But here it's like one growing every month. So very hard to manage all that. So that was the case. And I mean, it was very hard actually, because we also only decided to fully roll out the whole thing when the customer satisfaction measured by NPS actually was 20% higher than our human operation. So it took us a while, but it was basically driven by that need, right? Need to actually bring efficiencies for both in terms of cost, but also in terms of the customer being really well supported. But I mean, I can tell you, we were the first ones to launch Pix through WhatsApp using ChatGPT. So it's a brilliant thing, because you can basically, for example, I get a bill in my house and I open the bill, take a picture, send it through WhatsApp, then we'll format the whole transaction so that you don't need to type anything. And it can be different bills and different everything. And I mean, in a couple of seconds, it's formatted. We'll just check and do biometrics to authenticate the client, and then money flows from one account to the other. We have our own direct messaging, just like having WhatsApp in-app. We also do the same stuff in there. So, and we're going with a concept that we want to be able to offer everything that we offer through the app, also through WhatsApp. That we're calling it appless. We need to be appless as well, not only appless, but appless as well. And then AI is a pillar to be able to do that. We would not be able to do that.
To me, it sounds more like a foundational layer for you guys, right? So it's truly becoming a foundational layer for you. So there's another thing I read, and correct me if I've got this wrong. So you have 16 autonomous business units. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Right. So are there like 16 mini CEOs under you?
Oh, yeah. And well, I think that...
How does it work?
I think that this is one of the key strengths. I think that if you ask in the market, I think that the main, I'd say, characteristic people will tell you about us is product velocity. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that can only be achieved through that type of organization, right? So we have 16 different business units. It's also true that we take that concept very much to the end of it, which is, it's the equivalent of having 16 CEOs, also the equivalent of having 16 CPOs, 16 CTOs, and goes with that. HR people, because the idea here is that to give them full ownership on that business. Obviously, that creates a need to also invest a lot on a cross layer, which basically to orchestrate all that. And then you also have some of the functions like risk, finance that also need to do lots of more work in terms to integrate all that. But on the other side, I mean, in terms of ownership and getting things done, it's tremendous.
So I hear you, right? So you just mentioned that you're launching nearly a product a month. I was just thinking how you do it. Now, sort of, part of the answer is, 16 autonomous sort of people which drive the product velocity, as you said, which comes. But I get the cross-functional functions, whether it's HR, finance, compliance, risk, and so on and so forth. But I'm assuming increasingly, because financial services is also bundling itself, right? Payments and credit has to come together, and wealth and savings has to sort of dance together. How do you drive? And this is a genuine question. How do you drive the governance agenda? How do you make sure that the prioritizations, which might be high for a payment guy or girl and low for the lending person, are at the same level of abstraction? So, is there some sort of? Is it a top-down approach? How do you guys orchestrate it, as you said?
First of all, we have our planning sessions end of 1 year, just to make sure that everyone knows what are the, let's say, the must happens in the following year. But it also means that, for example, we have every Monday, we have a business review with all of the 16, and it's everyone together. So it's very, very hard for any one of them to basically say, well, no, I didn't know what was happening in the other business unit, or, oh, wow, and nobody told me, or I didn't. In the end of the day, and we follow that with a lot of discipline, we meet every Monday, actually for 4 hours. And we have all of those, and we go through all the numbers, all the projects, what's coming next week, next month. So yes.
So you're truly agile.
It actually needs to be that way. Otherwise, the chances of not being well orchestrated would be very high.
Very high. Let me switch the conversation. I think let's talk a little bit about, right? So ecosystems, super apps, whatever we call them, for me are like hungry engines which need a lot of fuel, right? I guess in your case that fuel is intelligent data, right? So again, was the intention from day one to actually build layers where you were able to ingest the data, mine and harvest the data, and then use the data? Because if you look at financial services today, one of the biggest challenges all the incumbents have, irrespective of how much ambition they have or not, is that they have copious amounts of data, which is highly unintelligent, highly unusable, right? Because no one ever conceived it in a way that, we're ever going to really, really, if I may use the term, weaponize data. I don't mean weaponize in the negative sense. I mean it from a positive sense. So was your business always architected with that view, or did the penny drop a few years ago and you said, no, we need to completely shift the way we manage data?
I think that data was important here since the beginning, but I would also be lying to you if I told you that, it was very well conceived from the beginning. I mean, maybe the concept was always there. Execution evolved through many different stages. I think that, one thing that is very clear from us is that by beginning with the digital wallet and being let's say, an open platform from the beginning, every time we wanted to go to a different layer, and we still do that, we actually use the massive amount of data that comes from the digital wallet. Because, if you're paying your bills here, I know the inflows and outflows of that digital wallet. If you're actually registering your cards here, we have more than 42 million cards registered on file with us, and 75% of those cards are third-party issuer cards. So in that sense, we always thought of the digital wallet as the, let's say, of the first repository of all that data that actually enables us to actually do other stuff. So everything that we're building, it was kind of on top of the wallet. And that may be because of that structure, it actually made us do that way, because we always needed the data from the wallet to go into other businesses. Otherwise, it would be very hard. When we decided to underwrite, that's a good example. Underwriting in Brazil it's a complex thing, because if you compare, for example, to the U.S., where we have the same let's say credit bureaus, Experian, Equifax, but the amount of data and positive data that you have in Brazil is much lower. So in that sense, you rely a lot on your own models instead of having a FICO score that's really it works really well in the US. So for us, deciding to go into underwriting was only possible because we had such a massive ton of data. Otherwise, if you go only with market data, you're going to have problems. And so it always made sense every time we wanted to go to a different business to look for the data so that we could do it well. So it was kind of the evolution of the business.
Eduardo, I'll tell you something. What I love about your business, and I use the word love, is I always had this view, and I've had it for the last few years, and I think it's been sort of proven true, which is, wallets went through a period of being incredibly attractive and then highly unattractive, right? People were like, wallets are commoditized, they're about to die their own death, and so on and so forth. But I think one thing people kind of missed out, and they've picked up, is that, and especially people who went open architecture like you, is that you actually became, in my view, the custodians of someone's digital identity, right? Because you had all this data, which was open sourced, which was coming into it, which was increasingly your digital identity, because your digital identity is not just the ID card, it's all that data about yourself, right? Now that you're in this position, that 75% of, I guess, all the data you hold is third-party data in terms of financial services, plus actually gives you the ability to rebundle the financial services back in, right? And I think this is where I think the age of the wallets has sort of come back, right? It's sort of, they've gone from being fashionable, unfashionable to saying incredibly fashionable. And this is where the banks have missed out, right? The banks, in my humble opinion, at least in the part of the world I've lived in, are these very closed network. It's all about my customer with my products, right? And the truth is, you can only do so much with that, right? And market data in most markets right now, to be honest with you, specifically with the underserved, right? Whether the youth, whether the low-income workers, whether the micro and small businesses, is incredibly thin. It doesn't matter which part of the world you're in, right? Because that's why we have billions and billions and trillions of dollars of sort of gap in terms of funding. Sorry, I went on for a bit because I do love the concept of a wallet re-emerging and sort of becoming this financial ecosystem. Let me ask you a question, right? So this is very interesting. You mentioned CBDCs when you initially introduced the ecosystem. Let's be honest, I think the last 6 months we've all gone crazy on tokenized money, right? Stable coins. It's like every problem in the life is going to be solved by stable coins. We're now starting to see tokenized equities. Kraken has talked about it, Robinhood. I'm not entirely sure if that's just a sexy little wrapper around something which exists, or is it something fundamentally different? I don't think I'm sort of bright enough to answer the question. There are two schools of thought. I kind of lean on both. I think CBDCs, I personally me think wholesale definitely is a use case. Retail, I'm not 100% sure. Maybe some markets it'll work or not. But similar to your switch from your P2P closed loop wallet to becoming, the enabler of Pix, I guess the next big wave that's hitting you is tokenized money, right? What's your perspective, at a macro level, in terms of this tokenized money and what role it's going to play in the Brazilian economy going forward, both from a consumer and small business perspective? And, how are you seeing your role evolving? Is your role going to change? Are you going to play in different parts of the value chain? What are your initial thoughts?
Our initial thoughts is, and I'm going to be very honest with you. We started with crypto about 2.5 years ago. And then we had a good let's say, acceptance. I mean, in 6 months, we had 1.3 million clients that actually had crypto here with us, different coins, right? And then we shut it down. And basically, we shut it down because the regulatory aspect of it was very, very, let's say, not mature. And we thought that, we need to focus more on the other products that actually would have a higher impact for us. And then we did that. So now we're coming back to it.
Fair enough. And I think stablecoins is, I guess, one of the reasons why people are coming back to it. So you're in the same boat as a number.
Yeah. Now, having said that, and especially, I think that there are a few things that make sense instantly, like cross-border transactions. But also on the SMBs, that could be a good force also. And I think that, being very honest with you, is that our number one priority right now? No, it's not. It might become next year. Now, do we have teams working on that? Yes.
Definitely.
But we also, and I'm actually going to go back to one of your previous questions, which I think that I didn't completely answer, which was, well, do you compete with all of those banks? Well, I can tell you that competition here in Brazil is fierce. And for two reasons. One, when we talk, because maybe the word incumbent banks, it kind of generates a feeling which is, those old-fashioned banks that are very, that's not the case here. I mean, when we talk about our incumbent banks, very, very good banks, and they are reacting fast also. And since they still have 70% of the profit pool, so this is a competition that it's going to be greater and not now. Do we compete directly with Inter and Nubank and Mercado Pago? I'd say that we overlap with them because every large player in Brazil, since the Brazilian has 5 different accounts, in the end of the day, we all overlap. But I mean, my main focus here is actually going after the 70% of the profit pool. Although I compete for the same 70% of the profit pool, it's a different type of competition. So going back to that, because I think that this is a race which is taking place now. And so we also we want to focus on that completely. And
I get that, and I think you're very correct in saying because to be honest, one of the things I spend my career. I'm a career consultant, so I work for a consulting firm. That's what I do for a living, right? And I focus on the topic of fintech, right? Which is everything from simple fintech, i.e., can we be better with our credit models, to everything which is about how a CBDC is going to come in. And one of the things I do tell everybody is saying that have your R&D teams start looking at, tokenized money now.
Yeah.
Right? Because like everything else, and you've seen it, it comes slowly and then it kind of zooms up, right? So you don't want to be caught out, right? But at the same time, it should not come at the cost of distracting what you're doing over the next 6, 12, or 18 months, because the distraction can be so big that you actually lose your sight in terms of what you need to do, right? And I think from that perspective, it's refreshing to hear someone by saying, I'm not throwing everything out and just doubling down on stable coins because that's the right thing to do. Now, there are certain industries, right? And I think you very clearly pointed out cross-border payments. I think cross-border payments, people have to look at it. And my recommendation to most people is look at partnerships, right? Look at, become a partner of Circle, become a partner, start doing something with Tether, whatever else, right? You don't have to build everything yourself because these are ecosystems. So I don't want to get into it. Let's talk a little bit about, you talked about LATAM. You're a Brazil play, right? Is, again, expanding into LATAM a distraction right now? Because, as you said, you have 70% of a profit pool to go after. You've got 60 million customers, and you want to grow your share of wallet, right? 75% of their data and I guess their transactions still sit on your wallet, but with third-party apps. So, where do you see LATAM expansion in the
I think that
things?
Eventually, and it will be the most natural thing. Eventually, we will expand into other countries, and Latin America seems to be the natural, not the only, but the natural way of doing it. At the same time, I can tell you that for the next 2 years at least, we're going to be primarily and almost only focusing on Brazil.
Yeah, fair. It's a big market.
The way we see it, most probably, when we decide to go to a different country, we will do it through a partnership, or we'll most probably not doing it at greenfield. So that's the way we think about it.
No, and I think it's very correct, right? I had the CEO of Time Bank. I don't know if you've come across them, TYME. But, I'm sure you've heard them because of the new bank investment, right? So I had Cohen on the show, and I was talking to Cohen and I said, it's very interesting to see that New Bank actually decided to invest in you, right? And I can actually see the logic why New Bank would want to do that, because, rather than come out into, South Africa or Philippines or the Middle East, right, which, as you said, different markets, different sort of dynamics, and then say, hey, I want to start from scratch and build something. I think it's a much better way to say, let me use a different instrument, which is finance in this time. Let me invest in a bank which looks similarish to what we do. And if there are synergies, then great, we can sort of bring those synergies to life. It is. But then let me ask you another question, right? We sit here in the Middle East, and I worked previously in Asia a lot, and I still do some work in Asia. And we always have these, aspirational benchmarks that we look at, right? And one of the things I'm actually doing quite a lot these days with my clients to say, look at these emerging markets. And, LATAM is a very interesting market because you guys are solving what I call some real problems at scale and with deep sort of solutions. Are there players in the world that you guys look at and say, hey, this is exciting, maybe there's something we can learn? Or is the LATAM market very much a LATAM market and you guys don't really look out?
I think that just to give an example, last July, we took the whole management team, and remember we have 16 business units. So it was like 45 people. We went to London and stayed there for a week, and we basically visited it was like 6 companies a day, and
okay.
Trying to get together what's happening there, because the truth is, you can follow the whole war in terms of, through LinkedIn, through anything, but it's very hard to actually get it, right? Until you go, and obviously we went there, visited more than 30 companies in a week, and took some good things from a few of them, and with a fewer still. Then we went deeper, and so we had last month, for example, a session with Capitec, South Africa, also very interesting. So I wouldn't be able to tell you like one specific one that we say, well, this is our north. No, but some very interesting things happening in different parts of the world. And yeah, we try to follow that.
So here's what we're going to do, right? So I'm going to make an invitation on behalf of somebody that I think I can, is we must see you at the Singapore Fintech Festival in November. Have you ever been there?
No, not yet.
All right, so we're going to get you. We will get you an invitation. We'll get you on the stage also, because I in one of my hats I wear is that I'm a sort of special advisor to GFTN, which organizes the Singapore Fintech Festival. So we'll definitely get an invitation out there, because we'd love to have more people from Latin America in Asia Pacific, because there are two sort of extreme parts of the world, and there are two terribly exciting parts of the world, right? In the sense, we learn a lot with the East and West. Eduardo, I've taken a lot of your time. Last question before we end it. 2035, what does PicPay look like?
Well, it's trending really well. I mean, if you look at us last year in terms of, let's say, revenues, we grew 61% against the previous year.
Wow.
It's going to be better this year.
Impressive. Oh, is it?
25 is going to be better on a larger base already. So it just shows that I think that the company is really like trending well in terms of in terms of the whole business. And I think that 25 also a year where we consolidate more products. Our SMB platform becomes much more competitive in terms of products. And I think that in terms of talent, we've had some very good additions also. And, you can talk about technology, you can talk about everything else, products, but this is a business which basically relies on people, right? And so that I'd say that this is our number 1 and 2 and 3 priorities, because the only thing that we know is that if we have good people, things might be tougher or not, but with good people, you can always, let's say, overcome anything that happens. And I think that we've had some really, really good additions, which, it gives a lot of confidence that things will work.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. So AI takes my job. I'll learn a bit of Portuguese and I'll send you my CV.
Well, it would be great.
But maybe before that, I do think, as I said, it's been 24 years since I last was in Brazil. So I might actually take up the opportunity, come and see you guys and actually see your operations, because,
it would be a really, really good trip. First, because you see that the country has changed a lot, although it still has the same, let's say, charm, same cultural aspects. And it's not only us. I think that the fintech arena here is robust, with many, many different companies doing a really good job. And it's.
No, and I want to get more of these people on the show. So maybe one of the things I'm going to ask you to do is introduce me to some of your peers, who are willing to come on, because I think we in this part of the world, in Asia, we are so fascinated with what's going in Latin America. The conversation comes up, but I think beyond just the reports which some of us consulting firms write, I think we want to get the first-hand voices out there and so on and so forth. Eduardo, I want to thank you. I really appreciate you taking out time.
Real pleasure.
Right. Pleasure. And, as I said, we definitely would love to have you in Singapore. I'll make sure that gets organized within the week and, you coordinate with your team. But best of luck with the future. I, for one, will continue to watch how PicPay evolves. And, we're already connected. So we'll keep in touch.
All right. I'll keep in touch. And I'll do my best. And if you guys invite me to be there with you guys, Singapore.
Yep, definitely.
All right.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Eduardo Chedid, who is the CEO of PicPay, and watch that name. As you said, the growth is just incredible, right? 60 million customers already, growing I think 60% year on year, and 25 is even bigger than 24. So they're not going away anywhere. If anything, they're becoming bigger. So with that, I'll say goodbye. And as I said, awesome episode. The first person from Latin America to join us. I'll see you next week. Cheers.